Okay, we're still in the middle or towards the end of the sugya of the Zayin Mitzvahs B'nai Noach. So we had the seven that Makubal, Avim, and Achai, Berchas Hashem, Gezel, Dinim, and the big three. We had other ones. Reb Shimon, he added Kishuf. Where did he get Kishuf that they were Mitzuvin Kishuf? Reb Shimon Amav Kishuf, my time of Reb Shimon. So we have a juxtaposition of psukim. It says, Michashefa Loi Sechaya.
Where are we starting from, Rabbi? I'm sorry.
Starting from Samech Amid Aleph, the top line. It says Mechashefa Loisachaya, a Mechashefa, a witch should not live, and that's Shmois Chaf Beis Pasuk Yud Zayin. And the next pasuk it says Kol Shoichevim Behema Mos Yumas. So we see a hekesh between Kishuf and Znus with an animal. So we know that a guy is mitzvah and Znus with an animal. The mele is mitzvah and Kishuf according to Rev Shimon. Kol Shoichevim Behema Mos Yumas. Kol Sheyeshne Bechal Kol Shoichevim Behema. Anyone who's in the ballpark of Kol Sheichi v'Mehema, Yeshne b'chal mechashefa loisachaya. Reb Eliezer Omer afal kalayim. Minani mili. Where did you know that a guy is mitzvah kalayim? Amashmul damakra. The pasuk says es chukaisai tishmoiru. Now chukaisai means my chukim tishmoiru you should watch. What does that mean? Chukim, the chukim shechakakti l'chol kfar. The chukim that I literally engraved, the chukim that what I gave to you already before. So it says in Vayikra Yates, Pasuk Yates, Vayikra Yates, Pasuk Yates, as chukaisai tishmairoi, my chukim that I gave to you already, you should watch. What are the chukim that I gave to you already? Behem techaloi sabir kalayim, sod chaloi sizra kalayim, ubeged kalayim shatnis lo yalo alecha. So therefore, says Rabbi Laza, a mitzvah is mitzvah even in Kalayim. Ma behem techar. We're on Samech about 6 lines down. Samech Amar Aleph. Ma behem techar beharva'a, afsotcha beharkava. So we're going ahead and defining the Kalayim. Just like behema is crossbreeding, so too sada is crossbreeding. How do you crossbreed in a sada? You take a tree, you graft one min onto the other min. Ma behem techar bein ba'aretz bein mechutz la'aretz. Avsotcha bein ba'aretz bein mechutz la'aretz. El meyata, you're telling me where it says the word chukim and it says tishmeiru that a guy is in the ballpark. I therefore using that formula put a guy in the ballpark for kol kula. What does it say? Ushmartem es chukaisai ves mishpatai chukim shecha kakti l'chakvar, and that's speaking about the whole Torah. So why isn't the guy mitzvah and everything? And for the Gemara, hasam ushmartem es chukaisai the hashda. It first says the word shmira, and then it says the word chukim after shmira. Hacha, it says chukaisai, first chukaisai, and then tishmeru afterwards. Meaning, these chukim that I give you, tishmeru, versus ushmartem, you should watch chukaisai, the ones that are coming. So obvious hashda, the guy you want mitzuvin in that. But they want mitzuvin in the one that was before of tishmeru, you should watch. Chukim may kora tishmeru, the chukim from before of kalayim, you should watch. Amir B'Shuv Karcha, right? Now getting back to the Birchas Hashem. So B'Shuv ben Karcha said, what was the protocol, fellas? Let's go back in time. They go to Bezdin, and they would when they were going ahead and going through the process, they would use the kinoi of Yake Yosi es Yosi. They would not go ahead and say the shame. And what did that mean? Yossi, we spoke out as 4 oisios, and also Rashi said is the gematria of Elikim of 86. So therefore, it's merumis to what the Rebbeinu Shalom. So that's when as they're going through the process, Nigmar Adin. However, when it came to the Gemar Din, the Eidim, Bezdin would send everybody out. And one aid would say what he heard. Bezdin would rip their clothing and not fix it forever. And the other aid would say that he would repeat. He wouldn't repeat it. He would say, "Ani kamahu." They wouldn't. Again, you don't want to be mavarch the shame. It's an awful thing. I heard a beautiful pshat from Suli Bornstein, the name of the Goin in that Teres Eliyahu. The halacha is there's a din of smicha by Megadef. You have to put the hands on the Megadef before you give him skila. We don't find this bit any other than the skullum. We find it by that. He said that. What's the whole inyan? Says the Gra in the Teres Eliyahu. What's the whole inyan of smicha? Is you're bringing a carbon, you're taking any avera that you have and you're putting in the carbon, it's a korban chatas, right? So, for example, the same mishtaleach, that's the classic, right? It's mechapa for all the various Klal Yisrael. In Yiddish we say Kenny, right? A reinpflanzen, right? We say a reinpflanzen. We go ahead and put it in, right? Kenny's going like this. Anyway, so it's geschmack. So guys, since Adam and the Bezdin, they heard it. They heard it. They need a kapara. The fact that they heard it says the God they need a kapara. Mamela, the samchu, they had to do smicha as a carbon. That this guy's been chapa for them. It's a gaval to get the hair from the guy. Okay, anyway. So Rishon and Karchas said they used to go ahead and say Yaka Yosi Yes Yosi. Remember, you had to go ahead and be Mevarach the Shem b'Shem. Amar Rishon and Karchas, Amar Rav Acha bar Yaakov, Ein Chayim Ad Sheyivarach Shem ben Arba Yosi. It has to be Mevarach the Shem of Yud Kei Vav Kei. Lafuke ben Shtei Yosi, Lafuke the Shem of two Yosi. Deloy Pshita. What's the chiddush? Yaka Yosi ben Yosi. It says right. What's Rav Acha bar Yaakov telling me? It says Yaka Yosi es Yosi, and Yosi is for Yosi, of course. Samadu Tema Milsa Bi'amahu Dinakale. It was, just learn something. Kamashma, no, it's Dafka. Ikadiyami, there are those who say, Ikadiyami, Amarav Acha bar Yaakov, Shmami no, Shem ben Arba Yosias Nami Shemhu. The shame of ben Arba Yosias is the shame. Freding or Pshita, Yud Kei Vav Kei is the shame. Yaakov Yosi Tanan. Samadu Tema Ad Ika Shem Rabba. Now, we know that we've heard it before, we don't know what it is. There's a shame of 42 Osias, guys. There's a shame of 42 Osias. So you might have thought that when the Mevarach the shame is the shame of 42 Oisias, Kamash Malon, Yaka Yoisias Yoshi, that the shame of 4 Oisias also would kill the person, gets skila. You didn't need a 42, even 4 to do the job. Shame Rabba, Umilsa Bi'amu, Hudanak, Kamash Malon. Nigmar Adin, right? They would stand up. They would stand up before they heard the Adis. This guy's going to say Birchas Hashem. He's Mevarach the shame. They stood up. How do you know you have to stand up? Minalon. Rabbi Yitzchak barami damakra. Eyud ben Baalov who Yoshe Balias Hamakara Asheloi Levadai. So there was this fat dude. His name was Eglon Melech Moav, and Eyud ben Gera is very, very famous for one thing. He was a lefty. He was a lefty. That's my son. My son Moish claims that you can be from. We're not from Levi because we're not Kahanim. So we can either be from Yehuda or from Binyamin. He says the amount of lefties in the family is so pronounced we have to be from Binyamin. That's one of his rayas. So this person Ayud was not ready. This person Eglin was not ready, and what happened was because anyone who would carry the sword would be on his right. He had it on his left. He said, "I have a message for you from Hashem," and he stood up. Ehud. The fact that he stood up to say Hashem, so we have a Kal V'chomer. If Ehud stood up, they had a shame Kal V'chomer Jew. Anyway, Ehud got him in the stomach, and the rest is history. So Makara, this guy was very geschmack guy, so he's a fat guy. So Makara was a cool place. There was air conditioning. Makara means a cool. He sat alone in Aliyah. He couldn't be among people. He was a fat guy. Says the Gemara. So Ehud Ba'alav who Yoshim Be'elam Makara Shaloi Levada. He was there alone. Vayome Ehud Devar Lakim Li'alecha. Vayokam Me'al Kisei. He got up. I think the Medrash says, guys, since he got up, he was likely to have his grandson, Shlomo. Guys, Shlomo was Eglin's grandson because Rus was a descendant. So since he gave kavod to Hashem from his throne, he was likely to have a descendant to Shilon Hashem's throne. There's such a, chazal. Chazal is very good. When you don't know anything, you say it's a chazal, it covers everything. Shu Nachri. He doesn't know the Shem Yuchad. All he knows what is. He knows the name, the Kinoi. Amad Yisrael v'Shem Mefarish. You're going to say the Shem Mefarish, as we said. Alachas Kama v'Kama should stand up. Good, very good. We said it would rip and you wouldn't go ahead and mend it, right? We said you would rip it and you would go ahead and mend. Says the Gemara. How do you know you rip when we go here? Mevarach Hashem. Dichsiv. So here's a pasuk in Yeshaya. Actually, it's a pasuk in Malachim, not Yeshaya. The pasuk in Malachim was state, Vayavoy El Yaakov ben Chilkiyahu Asher al Abayis V'Shevna HaSeifer V'Yoyech ben Asaf Hamaskir El Chizkiyahu. They came to Chizkiyahu Keruye Begodim. They were ripped. Their clothing was ripped. Vayagidu Loi Divrei Rav Shakeh. And they told him over the words of Rav Shakeh. Rav Shakeh had been Mavarach the Shem. Rav Shakeh was an emissary of the Melech Ashur. He had been Mavarach the Shem. And since you see that the clothing was ripped, we see when a person's Mavarach the Shem, they hear Mavarach Hashem, one has to go ahead and rip their begodim. So that's what happened over here. Vayovel Yochim, and it says that what? Vayagidlo Estevi Rav Shakeh. Loy Ma'achin, and they didn't go ahead and mend it. Minalon, how do you know you don't mend it? Amravo Asya Kriya. We learn Kriya. It says over here, it says Tuaim, and it says by Eliyahu, by Elisha, when he saw Eliyahu was sent to Shemayim, the chariot of fire, it says Elisha Royav Matsik, and he was of his Lashon, he Umitzaik, Avi Rechav Yisrael. Avi called out Avi Rechav Yisrael, and what did Elisha do? And it says then, Upashav Leiro Oid, Vaychazek Bibgadov, right? He went ahead and he Vaychazek Bibgadov, Vayikroim, and he ripped them open, Lishnayim, to two pieces, Kroyim. So the second lashon, it seems to be extra. In other words, if he ripped it, so of course it's two pieces. Why do you have to say Kroyim ripped? What's the second verb? Vayikroim l'shnayim kroyim, mimash mishnemak vayikroim l'shnayim eni yidei kroyim. Why do you have to say it again? Ma tamaloi mekroyim, malam eshay kroyim lo'ilam. It remained ripped forever, loy ma'achim. Okay. Banan. Echad hashemeya, the person who hears directly. V'echad hashemeya mipi shemeya, chayiv l'kroya. Guys, Bezdin is ripping. Bezdin's ripping, correct? Bezdin heard from the aid. So the aid heard directly, and he ripped. He had ripped already. And Bezdin had heard from the aid. So he didn't hear it directly. So Echad HaShemeya did directly. The Echad HaShemeya, Bezdin, Min HaShemeya, from the aid, is what is going to rip. But the Eidim and Bezdin, they don't have to rip. You know why? Because they had ripped it initially when they heard it. It says, they're hearing it again. So they have to rip again. They ripped, when Chizkiyahu heard what Rav Shakeh said, they ripped, but all these other people, Yoach and Shevna and Eliakim, they didn't go ahead and rip. They didn't go ahead and rip. Someone who hears a goy say the shame, Mevarach the shame, ain't a chayiv l'kroya. You're not chayiv to rip. You hear the guy, you're not chayiv to rip. V'im toimar Rav Shakeh, I l'chayra. If you're getting the emissary from Ashur, the assumption is he was a goy, and nonetheless we see that they did rip. That Eliakim and Shevna and Yoach did rip. He's a goy. And that Gemara says no. Yisrael Mumma Hoya. Taka wasn't a guy. Worse than that, he was a Yisrael Mumma. He was a off the derech guy, a Jew. So one din, who says the name is Shmuel. If you hear a guy be mevarach the shame, you don't have to rip. For Amar Rav Yudah Shmuel is second din. In Korimel al Shem HaMiyuchid Bilvad, only Yud Kei Vav Kei. Lafuke Kinoi. If you hear the Kinoi, Deloy. Upligi Rav Chia b'Travayu. And this din that Rav Yehuda said name is Shmuel, two dinim, that you don't have to rip from a goy, and two, you only rip on the Shem HaMiyuchid, is Rav Chia is going to argue on both of them. Dam Rav Chia, Hashemeya Askara Bizman Hazeh, someone hears the Shem Bizman Hazeh, Ein Chayiv L'Kroya, She'im Iyata Oimakain, if you don't say that, he's not Chayiv to rip, the Smali Kol HaBeged Kroyim, the person's going to walk around with rip begodim. In other words, the begodim going to be ripped because he's hearing the Birchas Hashem all the time. Now, Miman, who's he hearing it from? Ilem Mi Yisrael, if he's hearing it from a Yid, Mi Pekiri Kulihai, is it even Bisman Hazeh? Guys, even Bisman Hazeh, we're in Nizr in Bimavarach the Shem. So certainly in those times, so it can't be hearing it from a Yid. Ela Pshita Miyavi Kachavim. Ela what? It's Pashits from a Goy. Good. Now, so what do you see? What do you see? That Bisman Hazeh you can't rip. Mashma not Bisman Hazeh you would rip. It's a goy. So you see you rip from a goy. That Rabbi Chia argues on Shmuel on Shmuel. Sveitens from Shem HaMiyuchad Migemiri. They don't know the Shem HaMiyuchad. So therefore Ela Lab Bikino Yishmamina Bisman Hazeh Hu Deloy Bisman hazeh, you don't rip for the reason because you would have rip begadim. Hameikara, but not bisman hazeh chayiv. Shmami no, he argues on both points. He argues on the point of what of a guy, and he argues on the point of the Shema Miyuchad. Meaning, according to Rabbi Chia, you would rip on the on the kinoi, right? And you would rip what even a guy. Hasheni Amar Afani Kamahu. The Sheni would not repeat what he heard. He would not repeat the Shem. He would just say, I heard like he did. You know, we want to minimize saying the Shem Hashem. We want to minimize that. Amrei Shlakish, Shma Mina. What do you see from here? Afani Kamahus is kosher b'dinei mamanis, b'dinei nefashos. In other words, it's accepted as Haggadah Seidis, right? Umaylahu the Avirabbanon. It's a chumrah that they needed the Eidim to explain the Reidis. So in other words, you Bisman Hazeh, when you'd have Eidos and they both would say the same thing, that's only a chumrah ba'alma. You really could have said what? Ani kamahu. So you didn't want to repeat it like over here, Ani kamahu works. So why every other court case do you have them repeat both? It's a chumrah ba'alma because the second person could have said, Erzak good. He could have said, he's saying good. Okay. V'hacha the layefsha ukmirabana deraisa. Over here, it's not possible because you don't want him to repeat the shame. Therefore, we keep it on deraisa that Ani kamahu works. These salkedaitach that what puzzle hachamishim layefsha legavra. We're going to clean the gavra. What are you going to say over here? You're going to go ahead and kill the guy because you can't repeat Ani kamahu. Anyway, the final din in the Mishnah, Vashlishi, if there's a third aid, Omer Afani Kamahu, create a kiva the Makash Gimel Shnayim. We had Masech the Makas guys. If you have a Adim, right? You three people of Adim. You have to, if you mazim one of them, they're out. They're all out. You don't need the third guy. It doesn't make a difference. Once you one cat, you one cat. So you need the other guy to say Ani Kamahu. That ends the sugya of what of Megadef. That ends the sugya of Megadef. One of the Elohim Niskalim, again, you have your list. I gave you that Rambam, the list of 18. We're going back to, as we say in the vernacular, our regularly scheduled program. We're going back to what? To Oived Kechav and Avodah Zarah. So where are you Chayv Avodah Zarah for? So this, we're familiar with this a little bit, that when we say Avodah Zarah, there are two drachim, guys. There is Avodah Zarah that is Kedarka, meaning there's ways you serve at Avodah Zarah. Very famous, Markulis, you throw rocks at it. Baal Pa'or, you go to the bathroom in front of it. Okay, there's ways you serve Avodah Zarah. Then there are ways that even if you don't serve them, you be Chayiv Misa. Bowing down to them, bringing korbanos to them, being menasech. So that's what the discussion is over here, the sources for these places. It says, whether you're Oived, we're going to see that means Kedarka. I want to make sure my pronunciation is correct. So, Echad ha'Oived, the Echad ha'Mizaveach, whether you bring a carbon towards it, the Echad ha'Mekater, whether you're going ahead and you're burning incense, the Echad ha'Menasech, you're being Menasech wine, as or we're going to see in the Gemara field, is even being Zayrik Dam. The Echad ha'Mishtachaveh, even if it's not, guys, even if it's not Kedarka, one will be Mechuyev Skila for this. Even if it's Shlei Kedarka, you'll be Mechuyev Skila. So the first lashon is Oived is Kedarka, whatever it's unique to it, and the other ones is what even Shlei Kedarka. Another Shalai Kedarka, even if he says, this is my God, Eliata, so if Shalai B'fanav, one is B'fanav, Shalai B'fanav, either one. But however, Aval HaMegafef, if you're going to hug it, Menashek, kiss it, Mechabed, go ahead and sweep up the floor, Amirabetz, what's this, the seventh inning? When do you sprinkle the on the infield, right? The fifth inning, you sprinkle the water on the infield to keep the dust down, right? The seventh inning is the stretch at Ravavi. The fifth inning is listen, when it comes to baseball, Baruch and Kenny, they're in that's our experts. So they would sprinkle on the field to keep the dust down. So that's what Merabetz is. Merachetz, you wash the Avodah Zarah, Sach, you anoint the Avodah Zarah with oil, Malbish, you dress the Avodah Zarah, Manil, you put shoes on the Avodah Zarah. In these cases, Oiver Bleisase. You'll be Oiver Bleisase, but you'll be Chayv Skila. Hanoider, a person makes a neder in the Shem of Avodah Zarah b'shmai, a mekayim b'shmai, or a shvua, over b'leisase, over a leisase. A poyer atzmai lebal par. Someone goes ahead and poyer goes to the bathroom in front of the par, or he avoidasa and you chayiv skila. Azari gevin lemarkulis. If you throw an event through the markulis, is what that's he avoidasa, and you will be chayiv what you'll be chayiv skila. Okay, now the Mishnah that said echad ha'oived ve'echad hamizabech. Now, my echad ha'oived. What is the word? What are you doing there? So Amrav Yirmiyah hachi kamar echad ha'oived kidarka. One who's oived kidarka. Echad ha'oived kidarka. Ve'echad hamizabeach. Ve'echad hamaktir. Ve'echad hamanasech. Ve'echad hamishtachveh. Ve'afil shaloi kidarka. And these avoidus fellas is even if it's not the norm to go ahead and do it that way, you'll be chayiv skila. So oived means kidarka, whatever the normal way is. And these other ones, these even not the normal ways, you'll be chayiv skila. Fred Gemara v'lachshev nami zoyrik. Since you're speaking, bringing a carbon, why don't you say zrika? And for the Gemara, we did say zrika. Rabbi zoyrik kind of manasech. When it says libation, so you think it's wine, right? It's not dafka wine. It also means spritzing blood. The ksiv, the pasuk says, "Bal asich neskayem dam." So you see that what that David Melch used the lashon of asich and neskayem regarding dam. So it means to throw dam. You're not nisach dam. You throw dam. Now minoni mili. How do you know? How do you know that what that these things afilu shaloi kedarka you'll be chayiv? Minoni mili. In other words, these things mizabeach makdir nasech. All these things, fellas. Even though it's shaloi kedarka, you would be chayiv skila, correct? How do you know that? Where's your source for that? Okay, where's the source for that? The Tana Rabbanon, ilu nemar zoveach. Okay, here's the pasuk. The pasuk says, zoveach lelokim yacharam. If anyone zoveach lelohim, zoveach to the gods yacharam, you get misa. Bilti laHashem levadai, only to Hashem alone. Okay, so now we're speaking about Zayveach. Good. And that's what it says. Zayveach lelehim to avoid the Zara Yacharam, Bilti Lashem Levadai. From that pasuk, we're somehow going to learn out the avoiders of Mizabeach, Makdir, Menasech, even if it's Shaloi Kidarka, you're going to be Chuyiv Skila. So, what does the Gemara say? Zayveach Yacharam Hayisiyoyim, Zayveach Kochem Achutz. I'd have a Havamina, fellas, that you're being zoyveach kotchen bachutz. Now, this is the shvera havamina. What's the isser? If you shchute chutz, what do you chayiv? If you shech the carbon outside, you chayiv karis. So the Gemara is going to ask, where, guys, what's that perik? Elohei haniskolim. These are the ones you get skila for. How could you have a havamina? It's speaking about what? Shchute chutz. Shchute chutz would be chayiv karis. Okay, the Gemara is going to ask this as a kasha. Anyway, the havamina is, b'zaveach kotchen bachutz akosem medaber, tamid loymar, leiloi kim. Okay, Leilakim, Bizaveich, by this Elohim. It's speaking when some not bachutz, when it says the word Elohim, who you're being mezaveich to a getchka, right? Ainli Ella Bizaveich, that's it says only Zaveich. Makdir Menasech Minayin, that you be chayiv shloi kidarka. Tamid Leimar, Bilti laHashem levadai, Reikon, Rekain, Ha'avoidus Kulan, they reserved Avoidus Kulan l'shem yuchad. In other words, the avoidus that are miyuchad for Hashem, just like zvicha is unique to Hashem, so to mekater, incense, right? Tyrus, menasech, those are unique to Hashem. So, like similar to zayveach, that it's unique to Hashem, and that mefurish should be chayev for who had din these things that are unique to Hashem, shaloi kedarka, by the avoidus zara you be chayev for. Now, so you use zvicha as your starting point. What does Zvicha have? It's done inside the Beis HaMikdash. It's one of the avoidus. Therefore, we can include what? Mekater, Ketyrus is one of the avoidus. Nisuch, that's one of the avoidus. One second. If you look at the list above, fellas, the last thing it says, Echad HaMezabeach, V'echad HaMekater, V'echad HaMenasech, V'echad HaMishtacheveh. Mishtacheveh is not an avodah. Mishtachveh is not an avodah, so you can't learn it out from Zayveach. You can't learn it out from the pasuk. So that Gemara brings another pasuk for. Minayin Rabbi Mishtachveh Tamad Leimer Vayelech V'Yavoid Elohim Acherim, and they go and serve other avodah zaris. V'Yishtachvu Lehem, and it says openly they bow down to them. The Samachlei, what does it say right afterwards? But Tzeisi es Ishahu, right? And you're going to go ahead. What are you going to do? Tzeisi es Ishahu or Ishahi. Ashasu es Adav Arazeh El Sharecha es Isha Usakaltem Ba'avonav Mesu. So you get the whole kit and caboodle. They're going to get Misa. So you see, you get Misa v'Shtachaveh. So we have, guys, let's go outside. We have Avoidus that Yechayiv Misa for Shloi Kedarka. Mizabeach, Mekater, Menasech, and we have Ishtachaveh, correct? Zayveach is a paradigm for what? Avoidus Penim. So therefore, anything that's reserved for Hashem, such as Mekater and Menasech, would also be Chayiv Skila. Ayishtachaveh is not one of the Avoidus Penim. And now we have a second pasuk, Yishtachavu, and right next to it it says a pasuk that you get Skila. So those are the four things, even though it's Shaloi Kedarka, that it's not the norm of to serve, you would get what? You would get Skila for, by Avoidus Zara. Says the Gemara, Oynish Shamanu Ashar Minayin. So you just told me what you just told me the Oynish, what they get. Where do you know the Ashara? Where do you know the Ashara from? Tamid Laimar, Kilois Ishtachabel El Acher. You shouldn't bow down to another god. Shouldn't bow down to another god. That's where you learn it from. Okay, so now we're not limiting to avoidus shepnim now, guys. Once you include Ishtachabel, you're not limiting it to avoidus penim. Good. So it says more, Yochel Shani Mar Megafei V'Hamenashek V'Hamanil. Once you tell me you're not limiting to avoidus lefanim, let's include hugging the avoidus zara, kissing the avoidus zara, dressing the avoidus zara. Deish b'chayiv. Tamad loymar zayveach. Tamad loymar shechting. Zvicha b'chal haisa. Bringing a carbon was in the rule of avoidus penim. V'lo miyatza lahakash alev v'loym lecha. Ma zvicha miyuched ashi avoidus penim v'chayim lev misa. Af kol shu avoidus penim v'chayim lev misa. Yatze shtachaveh lidim ba'atzma. The shtachaveh we had a separate pasuk for that, right, guys? We had a separate pasuk because it's not many of us from them. Yatze lidim ala klal kula. So therefore, we have a pasuk for shtachaveh. We have zvichel kalkula. Since mechabek menashek is not bechal, it's amamar. Going back over the brisa. Vayisi oimer, I would have said bezaveach kachim bachutz hakasim medaber. That it's speaking about what? Being zaveach kachim bachutz. In other words, without when the pasuk says zaveach l'kim yocharam bilti l'shem levadai, you'd have a havamina. What are we speaking about? Shchutei chutz. Fred the Gemara, the kasha that I prefaced you with. 1 second. How could you have a havamina? It's speaking about shchutei chutz, right? Zaveach kachim bachutz karis hu. Zaveach kachim bachutz is karis. And what are we dealing with? We're dealing with skila. We're dealing with skila. We're not dealing with karis. How could you have such a havamina? So to myself, I would have thought, Kiyos Rubei, if you give him Hasra, Katala, you get Skila. If you give him Hasra, you get Skila. Kilo Yos Rubei, and if you don't give him Hasra, Karis, you get Karis. Kemash Malon, that Afilu, with Hasra, the most you're going to get what is Karis. The most you're going to get what is Karis. Okay, we'll stop over here.